Okay. Hi, Chloe. Good morning. Thanks very much for joining me today.
No problem.
Chloe, thanks so much for taking the time to explore some of your options that you made when you were leaving high school, and just really keen to understand some of that decision making that you made at that time, and just to look at what your experience has been like while you've been at Stirling Uni and taken part in their golf program as well. So over to you to begin with. What is it that you decided to do, and what were the options that you were maybe considering at that time?
Yeah, so for me, it was a bit of a unique situation because having lived in Scotland growing up, I then moved to Australia and finished school in Australia. So my timing was November time I finished school, so I kind of had a bit of a decision of what to do until the September, which was nice to have a bit of time just to decide what I wanted to do. And I guess for me, the main options were, as for most people kind of pursuing golf and wanting to study, option one was to go to the States and try and get a scholarship to go to college there. And option two was what to me seemed like to go back home to Scotland and study somewhere in Scotland. So I had kind of toyed with the idea of going to America, and obviously a lot of people, I feel, assume that you might go to America because that's the sort of, I guess, what some people see as a standard route. If you want to pursue golf, you have to be in America. But for me, it didn't quite feel right at the time, just because I was in a place where I still wanted to develop my game. I didn't feel like I was in a place where I was ready to just go and play competitive golf every week. So I think being quite young, finishing school, I was still 17. So I wanted to maybe give myself a bit more time to develop that over in Scotland. So that was one reason I chose to then come back to Scotland and study. Another being that academics to me were a priority.
Yeah.
And I have some friends who had been to the States and then had come back home to work. And because of the degree they'd done in the States, they then had to study again in the UK to be qualified to work here in that industry. So for me, I wanted to do a degree that was going to be a really good quality degree that if I decided golf wasn't for me, could then do that and have a career probably in the UK or elsewhere. So yeah.
Chloe, Chloe, that's an absolutely brilliant point, because people don't always explore that and look into it, and sometimes come to the end of their degree that they've been studying in the US and then look to come back and as a dual career, get on that kind of career ladder, only to find that they've still got to do a little bit more in terms of accreditation and things, because there's a bit of a imbalance between the credentials in the US and the credentials in the UK. So it's super important to understand the accreditation piece and understand what the system looks like UK/US, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, and I think for me, it was really important to know that some universities in the UK did offer that sort of sports scholarship side of things, which to me presented a really strong option to still go and be a student athlete and really pursue golf still. I think sometimes people perceive that if you're not going out to the States, then you're not really kind of committed to wanting to make your sport a priority. But I think what everyone always said to me whilst I was at uni is that you are a student first and an athlete second, which sometimes there's a bit of balance sometimes and it might switch at times. But I think I really wanted to prioritize the academic side and make sure that I didn't come out of uni feeling like I hadn't achieved something that could set me in good stead career-wise. So
yeah. And in terms of the support that was available, you mentioned there about the sports scholarship, and maybe the support system that you were able to access. Can you say more to that, Chloe?
Yeah, so that was a really key factor in coming home for me. Having been in Australia and not received support from the national governing body because obviously I wasn't Australian, I really started to understand the value of having the support of Scottish golf. So when I came back over to Scotland to study, I was lucky enough to have the support of Scottish golf in girls' squads and then women's squads. And they were really helpful in understanding that, you know, I was a university student and at times I might not have been able to commit to everything, but also trying to work to give me opportunities that might develop my game. So, and at the university itself, obviously being a student athlete at Stirling especially is really prioritized and valued, and the sport really, the university, sorry, really pride themselves on sport. So that was really important to me, that they understood the commitments that you had as an athlete. And I feel that Stirling were really, you know, willing to make some things work where you sometimes presented challenges and clashes with exams, or, you know, being away from class and missing too many classes. You know, there was always someone to go and speak to in the sports department who had links within the academic side to try and work out a solution rather than just saying that it wasn't possible. Which, having heard from other universities, sometimes that's not always possible. But I was lucky enough at the time to be a winning students athlete as well, which was a system that helped support that. So the universities really understood that athletes had commitments outside of that. So
yeah, definitely. It's great to know that there's definitely flexibility in the system, and they do have policies in place that help support student athletes. And sounds like that support was something that was absolutely crucial in terms of helping you succeed in both fields as you progress through your career, which is great to hear. Chloe, was there other universities that you were considering, or other options like a gap year or anything like that at that time?
I guess for me, because of the way it worked with me finishing school in November time, that's when the school year ends in Australia. So I kind of naturally had a bit of a 9-month gap year, which just for me, I came back home, moved back home in the March time, and lived with my grandparents and played as much golf as possible. So I was kind of thrown into playing girls and women's events, and I really enjoyed kind of getting them to know the girls on the Scotland team and getting to know a few people, and was lucky enough to then have some teammates from the Scotland teams also then joined me at different times at university. So, you know, I had a great group of people around me, and it gave me an opportunity to also meet with the coach at Stirling, Jean Robertson, who even before I was at university then kept an eye on what I was doing and offered some support in some ways. So yeah.
Great to hear. And you made that decision based on academics as well, which was key in terms of your career there in Stirling. In terms of that whole experience of being there, obviously going through application process, getting to uni and all of that, were there any challenges that you came across, and how did you overcome them, Chloe?
Yeah, so I guess for me it's kind of a funny one, because my dream when I was finishing school in Australia, my dream was to come back and go to St Andrews Uni, because having grown up in St Andrews, that was home to me and a place I was familiar with, and I knew the setup golf-wise would be great. And even though I got the grades needed to get into St Andrews, I didn't get in, so I was absolutely devastated, tears on results day, and thought it was the end of the world. But actually, as it happened, the best thing that probably happened to me was then going down the route of going to Stirling. Nothing against St Andrews, it's just a bit more of an academic focus and a bit less lenient in trying to get time off for golf or other sports. So I think for me, then going to Stirling really allowed me to take up opportunities from Scottish golf, like going to play events in Florida or South America, places that I was offered the opportunity to go and play tournaments as a junior and then as I went into the senior years. So I think had I not been at Stirling, I wouldn't have been able to say yes to as many of those opportunities. So that, alongside then playing British University golf, it really added value to that, to kind of be exposed to bigger competitions and better players. So really helped me develop.
It's great to hear. And there's that kind of saying that, rejection is protection. And it's only with hindsight that we actually see the value in that new route that we kind of end up going down. And it's a great point that you raised that actual fact you do need to be able to fit things in if you want to do that. And being somewhere that is highly academic and really quite intense in terms of the study piece doesn't always allow you as much flexibility. However, there are student athletes that do thrive in that environment as well. So we often say within the PL world, that kind of rare principle around the right athlete, right environment. So those options are entirely unique to each individual person, and it's kind of got to work for them as well. So that's
Yeah.
good.
And
Um,
just on that as well, I'd probably add that I think it's really easy to feel pressured into doing what other people are doing.
yeah,
And sometimes people think, oh, but this person's a really good player and they did that, so that must be where I need to go. And I think it's always got to be putting yourself first and
yeah,
deciding, well, what's important to me. Some people being away, it's not for them. I have friends who get homesick and things, and that's fine. And if that's what's important to you, then maybe being back in the UK is going to help you excel to the best of your ability. So I think it's really important to not feel pressurized by people asking, oh, are you going to America, or what are you doing next, and just taking the time to say, well, I've not decided yet and I'm considering my options, and using the support on hand to help make those decisions.
yeah. Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, that's quite a hard thing to do sometimes, isn't it? When you're in that environment of everybody, you feel like everybody else has got things sorted, and maybe you haven't quite fully decided yet. So that's brilliant guidance. Thanks for that, Chloe. In terms of your experience on the program, what did that look like? How many of you were on the program, and did you have to qualify for different tournaments?
So on the program at Stirling, when I first started, it was a bit more of a condensed program. So there was 5 females and 7 males. And as the years went on, there was kind of some restructuring of it. So eventually it was 6 and 6 to be even male and female, give some more opportunities to the females. And then I think even maybe it was slightly more as I was finishing. We had seven females, but not everyone maybe got to play every event. So within the British University golf system, we all played most of the British University events, which were often in not favourable conditions, and given the weather in Scotland from September to March. But I think what they showed a lot of us was that it's important to sort of build resilience and build character. And I mean, you might look back on some of the times and laugh, given that we've played in snow, wind, rain, hail, some of the worst conditions ever. But then when I go to a tournament now, and you've got 40-mile-an-hour winds, or people in Europe are thinking, what are we doing in this? And you've got that experience behind you, playing in different conditions and winning in different conditions. It really does help your belief that you can actually perform in that weather. So whilst tough at the time, it did definitely benefit me in that sense. And I do like to think that I'm a good bad weather player because of it,
Yeah.
because you just get your head down and get on with it. So, but luckily we were enabled to play a few more better weather events as well. So whilst I was at Stirling, we had the opportunity to go to America, out to New Haven, near New York, and play Yale University's fall event. So that was a really great opportunity. And we actually won the team event one year and was the first non-NCAA team to win NCAA event. So that was really cool for the team and for the university to come
Amazing.
from outside of the States and do
Yeah.
something good there. So it showed that we were on the right track as a team. And now I know as well, in my last year, they started the RNA Student Tour series. So
Yeah.
that's a really good initiative to help support student golf in the UK and in Europe, and really offers a new sort of competitive series for people to kind of compete with others in Europe, not just the UK, who are studying over here. So I played that in my last year, and that was really good to just play different courses in Europe, get to Portugal, Spain, Ireland, and then get to play against different girls, and really fun sort of team environment as well, going away with the team. So yeah.
Oh, Chloe, first, hats off. That's an absolutely huge achievement, beating the NCAA teams in that event over there on home soil. That must have been quite a special win for yourself and the team. Well done. Chloe, if you were to recommend or to offer any type of guidance for a student golfer who was considering the next options following high school, what kind of guidance would you offer to them?
I think, well, firstly, for me, when I was doing it, I legitimately did a pros and cons list of both. And I think it was really important for me to speak to people in the sort of institutions, like, so Dean at the university, who was the golf coach. I had a lot of correspondence with him prior to making the decision, and went to visit the campus and see if it felt right for me. So yeah, I think definitely speaking to people who might have experience in that area, whether it's other student athletes or people who, even if people have gone somewhere where things didn't work out, hearing from their experience, because that's what helped me a lot to make the decisions that I needed to make. So yeah, I think just asking questions and speaking to people about their experiences can be really valuable.
I think that's an excellent point, Chloe, because I think sometimes people maybe don't feel like they know people and that they can reach out. And it's always good if you've got those questions just to ask and kind of just to explore what the facilities are like, what's the program look like. Go and visit if you can, get a bit of a vibe about the place, and just
Yeah.
really kind of understand what the structure looks like, and if that's going to be something that works for you. Brilliant guidance. I think sometimes people see that as such a basic, and then they don't they don't follow through with that, and then there's really important conversations that could be had that help make that decision. Sorry, I'm moving about a wee bit here, and there's people just come into the office, so I've just come into a different office. Okay, that's brilliant advice for that, and always keen to end on a high. Chloe, what was one of the highlights of your time when you were at Stirling, both as an undergraduate and as a postgraduate student? Is there any highlights that you would offer?
Well, I'm lucky enough that there is lots of highlights, and looking back on all the trips we had and tournaments we played and just general experiences at university, I'm fortunate that there's lots of positive ones. But I think that one that I mentioned at Yale University, I kept quiet that I won the individual that year as well. So to walk home from there with the individual trophy and the team trophy, that was really special. And it did rain in the last round a lot, so I think our Scottish grit really helped us through there. So yeah, that was a real highlight, and just lots of little memories. Being around a team is something that I really do miss now, not being at university. So I think if you're lucky enough to get that opportunity, make sure you make the most of it.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks ever so much. Thanks so much for your time, Chloe. I know you're super busy. It's been really great just to get some of your insights on your journey, and just to offer some of the athletes who are in that similar situation that you found yourself in, just some guidance in terms of navigating those next steps. And as always, some of the things that you mentioned there, network is key. Build your network, have key conversations, and there's never going to be a wrong choice, because whatever happens, and basically there is always support around you to help move forward with some of those decisions. So, Chloe, thanks so much for your time. It's lovely to see you, and we'll catch up soon.
No
Thank
problem. Best
you.
of luck to everyone.